Thank you for joining us for another edition of the Florida Chamber's Bottom Line. I'm Matthew Choi, Director of Talent, Education, and Quality of Life here at the Florida Chamber of Commerce. With me is Representative MaryLynn Magar from House District 82. Representative Magar is currently the Speaker Pro Tem and is Chair of Healthcare Appropriations Committee in the House. Speaker Magar, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, have you enjoyed your leadership role as Speaker Pro Tem? Have there been any difficulties that you've experienced, enjoyable moments, surprises?
Well, it's quite an honor to be serving with Speaker Oliva. I have so much respect for him. I would say the most difficult part of that role has been to figure out where everyone sits on the floor, to match up names and faces. So when I have to call on them for an answer, I know where to look, and to make sure they're in their seat when they do have a question.
So, as part of your responsibility as Healthcare Appropriations Chair, you need to allocate that funding, which is upwards of 50% of the state budget. What's that process like, and what are some of your priorities for this legislative session?
Well, it certainly is a big role, and just in the few years that I've been here in Tallahassee since I've been elected, it has grown tremendously. I believe when we first came in as freshmen, you and I, that it was about 33% of the budget. Now almost half, 48%. And to get your hands around that number and that amount and the programs, the uncontrollable growth almost is overwhelming. But as always, my focus has been on to make sure that there was funding for our children, the disabled, who through no fault of their own are in situations, and elderly. To make sure that we have a good amount for them to live comfortably and well in their older years.
Absolutely. So speaking of that, Florida's most vulnerable, we've seen some new legislation this year from Representative Pigman expanding scope of practice for advanced practice registered nurses, and from Representative Yarborough introducing new innovative telehealth legislation. Can you speak to the importance of every Floridian being able to access high quality, affordable health care?
Well, there's a tremendous amount of pressure on our existing healthcare providers, and expanding scope of practice so that nurses can practice to their full extent of their education will allow those extenders to treat people, and I'm hoping that doctors can then focus on the more complicated cases. But maintenance of people that are sick, we should allow nurses to be able to do that, and we've been talking about that for a number of years. Telemedicine is, hey, we have got to embrace technology. But personally, it's very important to me. Telemedicine used in the diagnosis of someone having a stroke, personally important to me. So that if there is someone that comes into a hospital, presents, and if there's not a neurologist there at the moment or on staff, they can connect with telemedicine and to be able to diagnose that, give the patient the TPA medicine that they might need or not otherwise get, saving them months of rehabilitative therapy, or passing them on to a comprehensive stroke hospital. So embracing telemedicine is personal to me, and there's many other great uses, whether we're talking about care for psychiatric patients or just ongoing maintenance calls.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us for another edition of the Florida Chamber's Bottom Line.